Ibrahim Traore, the military leader of Burkina Faso, recently dispatched his senior generals to Rwanda, which has been governed by a different military leader for the last 23 years. No one expected Rwanda to join the Sahel military leaders after Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali had created an alliance. The reason for this is that Paul Kagame, the leader of Rwanda, is among the most influential African leaders. He would form a deadly coalition that the West would be afraid of if he teamed up with Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. The West had previously attempted to keep Rwanda at bay when the ICO was threatened with a military invasion of Niger. But now, more than ever, things have altered. Paul Kagame should be on the table, according to Captain Ibrahim Traore. He accomplished this by sending his generals to Rwanda and forming certain covert deals that literally alarmed the West. What causes that? And why does the West dread Paul Kagame? More importantly, what did Paul Kagame and the top generals of Burkina Faso discuss? In this video, let's learn about that. This month, Burkina Faso Armed Forces Chief of General Staff Brigadier General Celestin Simpor and his delegation made an official visit to Rwanda. He visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial in the afternoon of the trip as a way to honor the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. He also took a visit of the Parliament Buildings Campaign Against Genocide Museum. All of these trips to historical sites, though, were planned. It was evident that the Chief of General Staff had come to discuss some of the most important matters rather than to pay respects. He went to the headquarters of the Rwanda Defense Force. Discussing potential methods to improve collaboration with the Rwanda Defense Force with the Honorable Minister of Defense, Juvenal Mariza Munda, and the RDF Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General MK Mubarak. Briefings on specific defense facilities and welfare programs, such as Zigama CSS, military medical insurance, and the Armed Forces Shop, were given to the Burkina Faso Armed Forces delegation. He also paid a visit to Rwanda Military Academy Gako as part of his itinerary. However, the military chief of staff was not by himself. He was accompanied by other generals. The Inspector General of the Burkina Faso Police Force was one of those who met with the Rwandan police leaders. To improve police cooperation, Inspector General of Police Felix Namuharanya had his counterpart, Controller General Dr. Rojo Yadrogo, visit the Rwanda National Police General Headquarters in Kasairu for a week. Thanking the visit, IGP Namuharanya highlighted Rwanda's policing accomplishments since its founding 23 years ago. To maintain security in Rwanda and other nations where Rwanda has sent police troops, such as the Central African Republic, South Sudan, and Mozambique, the RNP has made large investments in training, policing equipment, and operational skills. The visit strengthened the basis for a solid collaboration in tackling law enforcement issues by exchanging perspectives and experiences on a range of police topics. Ouedraogo, the Controller General, praised Rwanda's excellent police work and said he wanted to learn from the country's contributions to growth and security. The head of the Burkina Faso Police visited several INP units and departments, including colleges and training facilities. The purpose of the tour was to promote cooperation and understanding between the Rwandan and Burkina Faso police forces. This begs the question of why Burkina Faso's police generals and army leader are traveling to Rwanda at this time. That's because Paul Kagame, who has led Rwanda for the past 23 years, is someone Captain Ibrahim Traore wishes to learn from. He was the one who brought the nation's protracted genocide to a stop and ushered in a period of progress. Ibrahim Traore is curious about Paul Kagame's military management and how he prevents a coup against him. Rwanda is one of Africa's remarkable success stories under Kagame's leadership, overcoming the difficulties of post-genocide governance. Rwanda was still recovering from the genocide when Paul Kagame took office in 2000. This was a difficult task that depended on a small number of cadres with little training and a big number of guerrilla fighters who lacked formal education. After over 20 years, Rwanda has become a stable, rich, and cohesive country, characterized by significant efforts at reconciliation. The population's needs are met by social services that are offered without regard to one's own ethnicity or geographic location. Those who condemn Kagame as an authoritarian leader, especially those from outside Africa, are unaware of who he is to his people. He is regarded as a reformer and nation builder who led his people and created a stable nation. Early in life, Kagame fled anti-Tutsi operations, grew up in Rwandan communities in Ugandan refugee camps, and joined the National Resistance Army in Uganda after being born in 1957 in southern Rwanda. Upon his return to command the RPF in Rwanda, the nation was confronted with a failed state, devastated survivors, mass murders, embezzled funds, and enormous problems. As Rwanda moves toward peace and reconciliation, survivors saw Kagame as the guarantor of their survival 25 years after the genocide. Kagame has had a strict approach to government, focusing on anti-corruption initiatives and stifling Western propaganda. Politicians who use hate speech will face harsh consequences, which reflects Kagame's dedication to promoting togetherness. His goal, which is ingrained in the Rwandan constitution, is to prevent genocide by any means necessary. The West frequently misinterprets this goal. Future leaders may carry on this dedication for many decades to come. It was a task that required people who had been both perpetrators and victims to work together to create a new, united nation with a common goal: the improvement of their nation, village, and area. Kagame carried out this endeavor within the bounds of the Rwandan constitution and in accordance with the will of the people. International experts and proponents of democracy have struggled to accept Kagame's unorthodox strategy, frequently assessing Rwandan politics from a Western viewpoint and failing to recognize the difficulties of post-genocide governance. As a result, they might have overlooked what is arguably one of the most instructive case studies in the previous 25 years of national transition. Mothers in Rwanda are now provided with comprehensive prenatal and postpartum care, causing maternal mortality ratios to drop by 77% between 2000 and 2013. Newborns are now routinely vaccinated, the city is clean, and residents can walk safely at night. From the standpoint of Rwanda, this is an example of human rights in action, which explains why more than 60% of voters favored constitutional amendments in 2015, enabling Kagame to seek re-election in 2017 after his tenure ended. Concerns about Kagame failing to develop a successor are voiced by some observers. However, Kagame has decided to coach thousands of young men and women to lead the nation into the future rather than according to conventional succession patterns. Women make up half of his cabinet, which has an average age of 40. While serving as the African Union's leader in 2018, Kagame promoted potentially revolutionary projects like the Continental Free Trade Area. Signed in Kigali. Despite his modest appearance, Paul Kagame has a lot of energy and ambition. He has announced his intention to run for a fourth term as president in the 2019 elections, having led Rwanda for nearly 30 years since toppling its genocidal government in 1994. In order to alter Burkina Faso's shape, Captain Ibrahim Traore wishes to learn from him. His army is heavily involved, but Kagame is still a resolute leader. Rwandan forces are fighting jihadists in Mozambique, fighting rebels in the Central African Republic, and apparently preparing to go to Benin, 3,000 kilometers away, to confront terrorists on the outskirts of the Sahel. Located in the Great Rift Valley, Rwanda is the fourth smallest country in Africa. Its 13 million inhabitants are primarily made up of agricultural Tutsi and pastoral Hutu tribes. In 1990, the country faced a civil conflict that escalated to the 1994 Rwandan genocide, in which Hutu extremists brutally massacred almost 800,000 Tutsi citizens. Since then, Rwanda has seen extensive reconstruction, and made notable strides in a number of areas. In 2019, the poverty rate fell from 77% to 84%. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. The astonishing untold narrative of Rwanda's rebirth centers on the critical role that women played in rebuilding the country 20 years after the tragic 1994 genocide, which killed an estimated 800,000 people in just 100 days. One of the countries with the fastest growing economies on the African continent is Rwanda, which not only recovered from the aftermath of a civil war. According to Women for Women International, Rwanda's country director, Antoinette Uwimana, Rwanda was in utter ruin following the genocide. Churches and schools were in ruins, offices and shops had been robbed, and hundreds of thousands of bodies littered the roadsides. Most importantly, the trauma of the horrific crimes that had wiped out the country's inhabitants was still being felt by the country. Approximately 70% of Rwanda's post-genocide population was female because many male criminals fled to neighboring countries, and a large majority of those slaughtered were men. Women took on leadership roles when faced with the necessity of securing their family's survival, and Women for Women International was essential in the nation's rehabilitation. More than 75,000 Rwandan women have been enabled by Women for Women International since 1997 to move from disaster and poverty to stability and financial independence. Women advanced from cleaning buildings to actively rebuilding them over their one-year program. In the wake of unimaginable carnage, they helped to bring stability by starting enterprises all around the nation. Rwanda has had a remarkable transformation following one of the most terrible genocides in history. Becoming a country that is not what it was in the past, it has become one of the cleanest, safest, and most vibrant nations in Africa. Rwanda's capital, Kigali, has drawn international investors due to its significant economic growth. Additionally, tourism has flourished, bringing approximately 1 million tourists annually who come to see the nation's natural beauty and the well-protected mountain gorilla population. Paul Kagame, who has served as the nation's president for the last 10 years, is the main force behind this comeback. He has effectively restored national harmony and turned the country around as a former rebel commander. But Captain Ibrahim Traore wants to learn more from Paul Kagame and Rwanda than just prosperity and development. This is demonstrated by his dispatch of top military and police generals, along with his army chief. His goal is to understand schemes before they become into coups. In order for Captain Ibrahim Traore to restore his country, this must be guaranteed, without giving the Western powers any opportunity to topple him. The governance and security style of Paul Kagame is characterized by a strong central authority, economic growth, and an emphasis on national unity. His policies have been essential to rebuilding the nation and averting a violent comeback. Paul Kagame has effectively used purges to keep generals and soldiers loyal to him throughout the last 23 years, not to former colonial countries. Paul Kagame demonstrated his use of purges to maintain allegiance. As a result, he occasionally started a total reform of the nation. He had earlier announced a number of dismissals after appointing a new head of internal security, army chief, and defense minister. Major General Alof Muganga and Brigadier General Francis Mutiganda, two longtime generals, were fired for indiscipline, according to Army spokesman Ronald Ravivanga, who told local media. He claimed, without giving specifics, that the law required them to turn over military hardware and quit the service without receiving any advantages as a result of their activities. An additional 14 officers and more than 200 others were also fired, according to a statement from the Rwanda Defense Force. Purges of this kind are necessary to guarantee that there are no divisions within the military. Since these divisions lead to coups, a strong leader makes sure that all opposing factions are driven out to maintain army unity. Albert Murasira, who had served as defense minister since 2018, was replaced by juvenile Marisa Munda. Additionally, Kagame named Vincent Nyakarundi the Army's Chief of Staff and Mubarak Muganga the new Chief of Defense Staff. The National Intelligence and Security Services Director General for Internal Security was Jean Bosco Intibachara. The Rwandan force, which had been stationed in Mozambique since 2021 to combat a jihadist insurgency, also saw changes to its command positions. In 2019, Muganga was named commander of the mechanized troops among the generals who had been fired. Before being called back to RDF headquarters in October 2018, in an undisclosed capacity, Mutaganda had been in charge of exterior security at the Nizers. Additionally, President Kagame accepted the revocation of 112 additional ranks and permitted the removal of 116 other levels. This demonstrates how Paul Kagame intentionally employs purges to win his military's allegiance to him and the nation. He has ruled for the previous 23 years without being overthrown because of this. The foreign powers simply have no place in Rwanda as a result of this. Because of this, Western critics claim that Paul Kagame's government has used purges and other tactics to keep power and guarantee allegiance. Paul has established an inner circle of devoted leaders who identify members of the military, government, or other organizations who they believe pose a danger to their authority. This could include military officers, political rivals, or powerful individuals who could contest the leader's authority. At such point, purges might be used to strengthen the leader's position of authority among devoted followers or inside their inner circle. By getting rid of alleged rivals, the leaders reduce the likelihood of internal problems by ensuring that key positions are held by people who are loyal to them. The Western powers attempt to condemn Paul Kagame by citing democratic justifications, since they are powerless in such circumstances. Purges are thought to generate fear among political and military elites, discouraging dissent or any attempts to undermine the leader's power. This is based on a false interpretation that contrasts Western ideologies with African ones. People may conform and refrain from acts deemed disloyal out of fear of being singled out for expulsion. Purges were a tactic employed by Paul Kagame to target people or groups that might band together against him. The leader prevents the formation of a unified front that would threaten their authority by disbanding such organizations. These kinds of revolt organizations, however, are permitted to expand in other nations, ultimately leading to coups and insurgencies. In a political setting, purges are the deliberate removal or eradication of people who are thought to be hostile, disloyal, or in opposition to the governing class. They are frequently conducted inside governmental, military, or organizational frameworks in an effort to bolster authority, quell criticism, and eliminate possible opponents or opposition leaders. Therefore, learning how to foster a culture of loyalty in Rwanda was the primary reason Captain Ibrahim Traore dispatched his top military generals there. He had stated that he would hold elections in 2024, but he has since stated that elections are not a top priority. First, in order to create an atmosphere conducive to elections, Burkina Faso's pressing problems must be addressed. However, being a pragmatic individual, Ibrahim Traore is aware that the Western powers are making every effort to replace all African military chiefs. This comprises the military chiefs of Guinea, Gabon, Mali, and Niger. Burkina Faso as well. The reason for this is that these military chiefs are preventing the French from taking advantage of them, which costs the foreign nations money. Captain Ibrahim Traore is particularly aware of the issue because he has already been the target of 2 coup attempts. In order to find out how to keep the military cohesive and prevent divisions, he dispatched the General Staff of Burkina Faso. The Western powers are understood to have never stepped in directly. Instead, they fund and assist a military leader who commands a sizable contingent of soldiers. The president, who is prepared to serve his people, is then overthrown in a coup. Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed. You're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.